Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. What's going on, everybody? It's Sunday, and it's time for another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi, and what's going on, Fruit Loop?
Oh, nothing much. Nothing much. You've had some exciting few days with your farm.
Oh, my gosh. Can I just say, we totally jinxed me the other night talking about going to the vet with my cat. So apparently when he got out Monday, on the last episode, I talked about the cat fight. And the next day he was kind of quiet. He slept a lot. So I just thought he was exhausted from, having a battle outside at 12:30 in the morning and didn't think nothing about it. So on Thursday, I wake up and normally I get my coffee, come into our studio, and that's where the cat bed is. So he's always up in his little perched bed. And when he hears my coffee maker start, he wakes up and waits for me to come in. Then he jumps in my lap, rubs my face and all that. 5 minutes later, he bites me and scratches me and runs away. But, for like 4.5 minutes, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
So I come in and sit down and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me and I'm thinking, okay, he's just tired. So finally I pick him up 30 minutes later and he can't walk.
Dude.
So guess where we go? To the vet. And they say that his little tail is fractured. So they thought maybe it was from the cat fight. So they give him some really super strong pain meds. And I literally was having to shake my cat. It just zonked him. So the next day, we notice he's dragging his back legs across the floor. He won't walk. So we go back to the vet. And
round two.
Both times I pull in, I think, Fruit Loop totally talked about, you were always taking your cat to the vet. And so his back foot was dislocated. And so he's all better. Thank goodness.
But you should have seen the other cat. No.
You should see my wallet. Yeah. We're going to be eating ramen for a month.
Yeah. If anybody wants to make a ramen donation, send it to P.O. Box. No, just kidding.
We are open for donations.
Yeah.
But thank goodness he's much better. In fact, last night, we let our guard down and kept the door to the room we're keeping him in right now open, and he got back outside. So I found him very quickly and said, look, the next time this happens, I'm definitely going to take you to the vet because you're my cat. But
wow.
Yeah. So that's been my last few days. And, but I'm glad he's doing good. It breaks your heart to see him hurting. So I know I complain about him all the time, but I really do love him. He's such a baby.
It's tough when they can't tell you what hurts. So.
Oh, I know. And we just knew something was wrong. And he was sitting I was texting you pictures of how he was sitting so weird the other night.
It was weird.
Oh yeah. He was really doped up on his medicine. So I'm not sure if it's, he was staring at a wall for 30 minutes, literally.
Yeah.
So he was loving life.
Oh yeah.
But we're good. So thank goodness. But yeah. So I need to knock on some wood and I don't have any clothes. That's it for a while.
Yeah.
He does have to go get spayed or neutered or whatever in like 2 weeks. So we will be back in 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
It's more expensive than kids. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So
that's why I don't have animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love them. But
love my brothers and then send them home. So, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we had some updates in the Orrin and Orson West case out in California.
Yeah, so the police sergeant out there made a statement. They had a new search. It actually wasn't it was a new search, but they had searched the area before, or people had. He was really, I like this guy. Like, he's very personable. He called Orrin and Orson our boys and sweet boys. So I thought that was pretty cool. It just gives them, it's like, these are our kids,
Right.
They're from Bakersfield. These are our kids. So on March 6th, which was yesterday, over 50 officers and personnel from BPD, which is Bakersfield Police Department, FBI, and Kern Search and Rescue, they searched the area near Pacheco and Cottonwood. It was a dirt lot near where Trezell and Jacqueline lived.
Mm-hmm.
They did have dogs out there. Over 150 people looking in an area. That's a big deal.
That's a lot.
Yeah. They said they were methodically searching the area for anything that could help them locate the boys. They were moving slow. I think you found some information out that sometimes this area is used for a dumping spot for like furniture and stuff.
Yeah, some locals had said that it's a popular area where people might go dump couches or tires or, just kind of like a common dump area that you're not supposed to dump in, but everybody does. So, yeah, it's known to people in that area for being a spot where you take things you don't want.
Yeah. It's interesting if something was dumped there. Why do you dump it there?
I don't know, but I'll say this. I think if you've got that many people out, it's probably a pretty credible tip.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to call the cavalry out for something that,
yeah,
doesn't seem urgent.
Yeah. And there were some sources that said that this area had been searched before, but not at this magnitude.
Right. So I think you couple that with the fact that Bakersfield took the case back over and then this search yesterday, I just feel like they know something happened in Bakersfield is my gut.
Yeah.
Just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we did start listening to the Dateline podcast.
It is so good. Keith Morrison could read an instruction manual and I would be all ears.
Yeah, it is. It's like really good. It's like little nuggets of information.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. So we split it down the middle, and you took half of them and I took the other half just because it's been so crazy for me the last few days. I cannot wait to go back and listen to the first three. But you did that for Pretty Lies. So we're going to start that right now.
Yep. So starting off, they're talking about Lori, and I immediately, because they go to the audio of when the police were there to do the
welfare check.
I couldn't think. And you just hear her voice. It's like when she was in the police station when Charles took her purse or whatever and all that stuff. So her voice is just elevated.
Yeah.
And you just see her. She's just talking her way out of stuff.
Yeah. And it's worked for her up until this point. And the one thing that we were talking about right before we went on was if you take the recordings where she's talking about Joe and wanting him murdered, or so that's a relaxed setting. But if you listen to the audio of when she's kind of fussing at Melanie Gibb, if you listen to the audio in Chandler police station, if you listen to the audio at these welfare checks, when she is sort of caught in something, I've noticed that her voice gets higher and higher and more forceful when she is trying to wiggle out of something.
Yeah.
It is just night and day. And maybe we all subconsciously do that when we're not comfortable talking about something, but there is a notable difference. And it's almost like if she shouts it, she's going to convince whoever is listening to this that she's right.
Yeah. And Alex we talked about that. Alex did the same thing when he was talking about shooting Charles.
Right.
He has that hype it, It's like, yeah. Yeah. So we're just pulling nuggets out. So if you want to go back and listen to the whole thing, go right ahead.
We totally recommend you do because they're just full of a lot of nuggets that this is what stood out to us, and it wasn't really everything that stood out to us. There's just not enough time in a day to pull every single interesting thing that was said.
Yeah.
So we totally recommend you guys go and start this from episode 1.
Yeah.
It's just a great supplement to what we already know, and then it's interviews with people where you feel like they had a lot of content that they just weren't able to fit into episodes, but it doesn't feel like leftover stuff. It's like we said, it's just got some nice little nuggets in there of things we hadn't heard before. So we're going to bring what we thought was interesting.
Yep. So Lori stated, this is when she's talking to the police with the welfare check. Lori stated that JJ was back in Arizona, that he struggled in school there in Idaho. So she was putting him back in school in Arizona, and she would be joining him soon. She said he cried every day about going to school. The principal would have to come out and drag him out of the car.
Seems like it would be really easy for the cops to go to that school and talk to the principal.
Yeah, which we know they did.
Yeah.
Eventually they did. So I don't know. I just find that odd.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, she had told Kay the reason she was moving to Arizona or to Idaho was for a job.
Yeah.
And we know that JJ was not in school very long at all.
No.
When they moved, I mean, I know he was the last of the two to be killed, but still, I don't know when their school started. I need to look. You know, a lot of times schools here, they start in August pretty early, but I know in most of the schools it's like September.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was in school, but maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Which would be any kind of adjustment for me. I would be thinking, well, yeah, that's any kid that's been yanked across the country into a different climate where you know nobody and different staff members who he's not comfortable with yet.
Yeah. I mean, we've both been there. I know we used to get new kids in our class, and it did take.
Oh yeah.
Special needs kids, they're different. They need extra things, and it would take a while to get adjusted. So
there's a different trust, I think, between having a special needs student and a regular education student. And I don't like saying special and regular, but that's kind of the terms we use. But you're so much more intimately involved with kids that have autism that are in special classes because it's just more hands-on from basic hygienic things to education. And so there has to be a level of comfort there because you may be helping that kid go to the bathroom and that sort of thing. So if he's upset, I wouldn't find that very suspect, but we know that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yep, she's just another one of her lies. So, one thing that Melanie Gibbs states, Lori told her that Lori's family would not make it through the tribulation.
That's interesting.
So yeah,
because we know she was sending them supplies for the end of the world, according
and
to her
Chad's
brother.
books and all that stuff.
Yeah, here's your guide to the tribulation.
Yeah. So then we move on to Colby. And Colby starts talking and says him and his mom were really close. He grew up being her best friend. She had made everything fun.
Yeah, and I think too, so you have the second husband, which was Colby's father, correct? The second husband was his father.
Yep.
So you go several years until she marries Joe. And I've been a single mom before, so it's like you do bond with your kids differently. Even though the kid's dad and I have a great relationship, it's just you do sort of have a sense of it's different.
Yeah.
Than when you're married.
Yeah. Well, you take, and Colby hits on this, you get put into an adult situation, and he's a kid, and he's seeing all this stuff, he's hearing all this stuff. And he basically gets treated like an adult. He gets treated like the man of the house because that's what he is.
Right.
So he knew everything was going on. He knew if they had money. He knew if they were going to move, and they did move a lot. Mm-hmm. He would just pack his stuff up and knew it was time to go. Their situation was always hard. He said it always seemed like they were trying to get away. Yeah. And always running.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard way to grow up. I mean, we didn't grow up that way, but we know people who did. And I just think that Colby probably never, in hindsight, got the chance at any kind of a normal childhood because you can't put on your son the responsibility of being the man of the house. It's just, and I never did.
Yeah,
my kid's a kid and he doesn't feel like he needs to be responsible for anything above what age appropriately he should be responsible for. And I think that can kind of mess boys up.
Yeah. So,
and girls.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. So in walks Joe. And obviously Colby's going to be protective. And their relationship wasn't that good. So eventually we see Lori go through another divorce. So it's like this huge roller coaster for Colby, I'm sure.
Yeah.
these guys keep coming in.
And not only that, but it seems like every aspect of relationship life for her was just, it was so much drama.
Yeah.
And the kid is smack in the middle of it. Colby, probably as far back as he can remember, has been in the middle of dramatic relationships.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like he had a normal childhood.
No.
By no means. So then all the stuff happens with Joe. They divorce. Lori meets Charles. And this little story Kay tells, when she first met Lori, she asked her if she had ever been married. And Lori said, yeah, 3 times. And Kay says, girl. And in the South, that's what you say, like, girl.
Or if you're talking to more than one, you say y'all.
There you go. And Kay says, you're only 32. And Lori, I think, kind of responds a little bit and like, yeah, I know, or whatever. And then Kay says, well, this one better stick. That's her brother, you know.
Well, of course.
Yep. But Colby had nothing but nice things to say about Charles, that he was just awesome to him and Tylee, that he went out of his way to make Lori happy. They eventually moved to Phoenix to distance themselves from Joe.
I would be curious, how long after they moved to Phoenix did Joe move?
Yeah, I don't know that.
I don't know
either.
that. I'm going to have to find that
We
out.
probably knew that at one time.
Probably.
Yeah.
All these dates and times and people are,
I know.
especially now that we picked up new cases.
Yeah, let's mix these all together. So when they moved to Phoenix, Colby really didn't like the move at first because he would have been almost in 8th grade. So it'd have been probably the end of his 7th grade year. The middle school, that's a tough one. To be picking up and moving during middle school. So
yeah.
But he finally fell in love with Phoenix because he was around family.
Mm-hmm.
And they would visit a lot, birthdays, whatever. He actually said they actually got to stay in one house.
Yeah.
And he said it finally felt like home. They didn't have court battles. Just everybody was calm.
Yeah. And it just seems like from everything we know, that wasn't anything that Colby got to experience until Charles was kind of the dynamic family.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it seems like things were good for for a bunch of years
Yep.
of that.
Yeah. From his 8th grade year to 12th grade for him, that was that stability.
And that's what, I mean, thank goodness he was able to be with Charles for those years, because those are huge years in teenagers' lives, those high school years.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like Charles was a really good example to him because Colby seemingly is a great husband and father. He adores his family.
Yeah. And you kind of see, I don't know, you remember the letter, or not a letter, but he made a post about Charles when he died or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was good. So
right.
We know that time was good for him.
Mm-hmm.
So then JJ was born. And we know his parents, there were some drug issues. So JJ actually became a ward of the state.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. So CPS called Kay and Larry and asked if they could take him. And of course, they took JJ in. But they realized they were older. They were running a business. And kids in general, taking care of kids are tough. So eventually Charles asked if he and Lori could adopt him. And I thought this was interesting that Kay said Charles and Lori wanted a child together and JJ was it.
Huh.
I guess Lori had Tylee and Colby.
Yeah.
And that was, JJ was kind of their kid together. So Colby at first was hesitant about adopting JJ. I mean, he was 17.
Yeah, that's, it's a big gap.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Like when I was 17, if my parents would have said, hey, we're going to adopt this newborn kid, yeah.
Yeah. Because they're starting over.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a kid that's 17 and you've got one probably in middle school at that point. So you're not super far off from having an empty nest.
Yeah.
But I mean, Charles clearly wanted to have JJ.
Yeah. And he said that quickly changed the moment he met him.
Yeah, of course. Every video I've ever seen with Colby and JJ, it's just so sweet.
It is.
You can tell he really adored his little brother, and the feeling was mutual.
Yeah. So we know Tylee took on the motherhood role with JJ. She was very protective. And we know she wasn't going to move to Rexburg.
Right.
And she moved because JJ to stay with him and be with him. So
I'm sure she probably saw at that point Lori becoming more and more absent as a mother, and she knew where that would leave JJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just it's props to her character that she wasn't selfish about wanting to stay where her family and her friends were. She was worried about that boy.
Yep. So then we come to the move to Hawaii. And Larry and Kay said Charles had always wanted to live there. Lori had always wanted to live there. So they moved there. And they said JJ loved anything to do with water, whether it be the lake, pools, in the ocean. Like, he loved it. The school there was top notch. So that was a plus. And they said they were really happy there in Hawaii.
It seemed it, because if you remember, they opened up that little juice truck.
Yeah.
And I found it on Facebook, and it seems like maybe they sold it to somebody or something, but you could tell the first couple of posts were probably from Lori or Charles, because it was in the time frame that they were there. But then, it kind of went off. But it did seem like Hawaii was where they were their happiest. Now, Lori just had an obsession with Hawaii, though, because she married Joe Ryan there. I think did she marry Charles in a church, or was it in Hawaii?
I think it was in Vegas. I think they got married in Vegas.
And then she married Chad in Hawaii. And then I just thought it was very weird that, for me, your brother has murdered your husband, and you go back to the island where you lived with your husband and get married to your fifth husband. That whole thing just gave me the skeevy.
That's odd.
Yeah.
That's real odd. So we know there she meets April Raymond, and April says they connected immediately. They had a lot in common. They had kids. They had been divorced before. And I think April states that she was kind of the outcast with her church because she was divorced.
Oh, yeah.
And all the other ladies were married. So
yeah, so you find somebody in the same boat.
Yeah. So even though Lori was married then, she had been through divorces. So she said Lori was fun to be around. She was nice to April's kids. And when she used this word, I was like, what? She described her relationship with Lori as refreshing.
Well, if you think about it, though, if you are if your life has taken you to where you're divorced and you don't meet anybody, obviously April seems very connected with her church, and she seems very active in her church. So I'm sure it's just refreshing to have somebody with new energy come.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably don't get a huge influx of people moving to Kauai. Just, it's expensive. It's far from the mainland. And so I always thought one thing that was a little weird too is I thought April and Lori sort of favored each other just a tad.
Yeah.
But it seemed like they had a wonderful little friendship when things were normal.
Yeah. So eventually Colby leaves Hawaii. He returns to the mainland and enrolls in college, and he meets his now wife Kelsey there. So Kelsey and Lori did not get along.
Well, you can tell by the light and dark sheet where Kelsey was one of the darkest spirits that Chad labeled.
Yep. So Colby said it was like a competition, and it took him a while to realize what was going on. I mean, he said Kelsey wanted a relationship with Lori, but Lori felt Kelsey took Colby away from her.
Oh, can you imagine her as a mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. So Colby said Lori was treating him like a boyfriend instead of a son.
Yeah, and that's a really weird dynamic. I can't imagine being jealous of my son's girlfriend.
No.
It's because
weird.
You want your kids to progress, and you want your kids to find people who are going to love them and take care of him, because Colby can't be a grown man like Alex following his mom all over the country.
Yeah.
I mean, could, but that's not a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet she did. But I think it just goes back to Lori is a controlling person. And I think maybe as Colby is spreading his wings and growing into a man, it's hard for her to let go. But I think that's kind of every mom.
Yeah.
It sounds like she took it to another level.
Yeah. Way another level.
Yeah, it's just creepy to me.
Yep. So the last thing, and this was like very interesting. So Kay sharing this part, and it's about Joe's death. And she says that Lori was taking her to the airport, and they were just talking. And Lori tells her that Tylee's dad, Joe, had died. And Kay said, ask her what happened. And Lori said Joe was so evil that God took him, that he was too evil to be on this earth. Lori then says, we don't have to worry about him anymore. Tylee doesn't have to deal with him anymore. So Kay asks how he died. And Lori begins to tell her he was dead like 3 weeks and nobody even missed him. That he was just that evil that people didn't want to be around him. And we know
that's projection. She's just trying to make her feelings as if everybody thought that way.
Yeah. But then she goes on to state, but he did have a life insurance policy and she was the beneficiary.
See, we've always wondered.
Yep.
I don't think we knew for sure until this podcast.
Exactly.
Until Mommy Doomsday.
Yep. So Lori was a beneficiary and she got $75,000. And now Tylee was getting Social Security benefits from her dad each month. And Lori states it's all good. He needed to die. Yeah.
Well, I think like Kay and Larry. I say I don't think for a second he died of a heart attack.
No.
And he was cremated, so there's that.
Yeah.
If they don't have any digital evidence of a crime, then the body's cremated. They did save a few pieces of tissue, but that's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we just don't know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it seems like that's just going to go unnoticed. I mean, or unjustified, I guess is the word, because I don't think Annie feels like it was a natural death. Nobody who hears the story after the fact of where we are now would even look at that and say, yeah, I think it's natural.
Yeah.
Just like Alex. I've thought about that this weekend. I almost feel like he took something. I think he might have killed himself.
Yeah.
I just do. I'm sorry. He had been out of town or something right before he died. And we've always pointed out that the day before, Tammy Daybell's exhumed. And you can't just tell me that just so happened. And they wanted to talk to him. The investigators in Chandler wanted to talk to him about Charles's death.
Yeah.
So, and the next 3 episodes, what we talked about covered 1 through 3. Is that right?
No.
Oh.
That covered 1 and 2.
Oh, well.
1 was just like an intro, so it wasn't much there.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So this is just 1.
Okay. But in the next ones, we really get into the specifics of Alex's death, and there were some things kind of going on behind the scenes I didn't know about as far as law enforcement starting to look at him.
Yeah.
And on the next episode, we'll get into that.
That's yours, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I've still got 1 more, and it goes more into Chad stuff.
Oh, it's I'm not seeing it here.
It's in between. It's okay. Yeah, it's not on here. I didn't type it on
Confucian.
here. Yeah, Confucius. So yeah, the next one kind of gets into Chad and their beliefs and stuff like that. So there was some interesting little nuggets that came out of that.
Yeah. We hear in the later episodes, we get to hear from Tammy Daybell's sister. I think it's Sam is her name. Is it Sam? And so we haven't really heard from her since all this has happened. And so there's some insight there into that last visit between Tammy and her sister. This was a really, really great series. I enjoyed it.
Because I think today is the anniversary that she got brought back to Rexburg, right?
It was a year yesterday that she was in court with the Jolly Rancher lipstick.
There you go.
It was a year. And Colby talks about that in later episodes too. So I just think I think we have to be getting close to charges. I say it every episode, but these grand juries are back in session there, and
it's falling into line.
Yes. I really do feel like as soon as Rob Wood reasonably can.
Yeah.
I just want to know, because I'm not super anxious for the charges to come because I know they will eventually. I want to know Tammy Daybell's autopsy. That is literally what is at the forefront of my mind right now.
I was actually thinking about that today while I was working on this. Does Emma and them know now?
I would think they would, because really quickly after she gave that interview, Court TV reached out to the sheriff and he said they have to come in. And at first we need to ask them some questions or whatever, but I think they've got to talk to these guys and tell them this is not public, obviously. If you want, I think it's probably more of a warning to these guys. Because I feel like if they really, really had something crazy they needed to talk to them about that was super important, they would have made that happen by now.
Sure.
So I bet they do know. And I mean, either way, it can't be easy.
No.
What they know.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. It's just, we've talked about it so many times before, the number of people that are affected by these deaths. And even down to seeing pictures of JJ with his little cousins at a birthday party. It's not just this little group that we hear about all the time. And it's just so many people. But we've got a lot of good stuff coming from this. Melanie Pulowski talks on here, tells her some of her side. Ian's on here briefly.
This show is basically a Dateline episode.
Right.
It's just audio.
It is. It's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So last podcast, I misspoke and said that Ted Bundy had his law degree. He didn't have his degree. He had been to school, but he didn't finish. So this awesome lady reached out. She actually lived in the area and had some crazy stuff happen in the area when all that was going on. So, but that is correct.
Yeah, I'm sort of on a serial killer kick right now. I find it very interesting, the psychology of it. But there's
should I be worried?
I mean, if you make me mad, maybe. But I was watching one last night. It was on Netflix, and it's a series, so it's like maybe 5 hours long. So I was kind of tired, so I popped it on, and I woke up. I guess it was probably 4:30 this morning. Something was loud on the TV. I'd fallen asleep with this on. The documentary still was not over. And I think it's John Wayne Gacy who dressed as the clown. And I literally sit up, and here's this creepy looking clown serial killer on my screen. And I had a mini heart attack. And my dogs jumped because I kind of gasped. But yeah, so I'm on this serial killer kick. And I'm going to tell you, watching The Night Stalker, there is something about that man. Every time I see a picture of him, I feel evil coming even through the screen. There's just something about that man. It's almost like he's not human. I mean, I know he's human, but it's just, I think if there's evil walking the earth, it's somebody like him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It really bothered me just deeply.
Yeah.
His story and his crimes and...
Dude, so you watched those. I was watching Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know if y'all know this, but is it Netflix? I don't know. It's one of those. Netflix, yeah. It's like Unsolved Mysteries. It's not as spooky as when we were kids. And the guy, they would do the music, and the guy was on there, and he would talk. You know what I mean? Like in the trench coat. I don't forgot his name, but. I mean, they have some really good things on there because I was doing a little research on Orrin and Orson, and this one kind of jumped out at me because it was on a Brooklyn case where 2 kids were kidnapped, and they feel they were kidnapped by somebody who wanted kids and couldn't have them because they were like 2 and 3. So it was really good. But so you're watching that, and I'm watching those.
Yeah, I'm on a true crime kick.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to me. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just, I guess because the whole concept of murder and hurting people on purpose is so foreign to most of us. And I think that trying to understand why, I get roped in, and I really didn't want to watch the Night Stalker just because I have a tendency to get very paranoid and like I'm convinced, that I hear footsteps outside my window and all this stuff.
I'm gonna come walk by your window tonight.
I tell you what, you gonna get like
you gonna sick the dog on me?
No, I'm gonna sick my bat on your head.
Yeah.
I don't have guns because number one, they scare me, but I tell you what, I will swing for the fences, and it's heavy. Oh my gosh, I scared Sarah Rose, my youngest, so bad the other night. So she had walked in while my daughter and I were watching Night Stalker, my teenager. We didn't let her watch it, so she was in her room. And so I had been out to my car, and I saw she follows me all over the house, guys. She's 9, but she is my shadow. And so it was dark outside. And my door has kind of some glass that you can't see in easily, but I could see she was looking for me. And she kind of opened the door to see if I was out at my car, and I made a really spooky sound, and that kid busted out crying. I scared her so bad. She said, "You were watching that creepy show, and I walked in and there was blood everywhere, and then you made a noise." And I thought that was it. And she's always dramatic, bless her heart.
Yeah, she's going to be an actress.
Yes, but that was pure terror. And finally, like 30 minutes later, after she stops crying, she said, "You really got me." But there are times where if I'm up and I'm trying to check my doors, paranoid, let me go double check. Sometimes my kids are very famous for me thinking they're in bed, and then they hide behind a door. The other night, I'd been watching The Night Stalker, and I got up to make sure all my windows, I was like pulling up on my windows to make sure they wouldn't budge and making sure my doors were locked. And I thought I heard my son, and he loved to jump out and scare me. And I said, "I will punch you and not mean to if you jump out and scare me. I've been watching The Night Stalker." So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse when I watch this. I love it because I learned so much. But then I'm like, the guy bagging my groceries at the grocery store was looking at me weird.
Yeah.
Is he going to follow me home?
It's like when, and I don't watch anymore. I used to. Criminal Minds. Like that show was so messed up. Because it was all about serial killers and stuff. And it was just so dark, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
But
so covering this kind of stuff, it gets heavy because when I did this years ago, that was sort of towards the end. I was like, you just have to sit here and realize that you're talking about the worst of the worst of humans. This isn't everybody, but you really lose some of your faith in humanity because it seems like most of the cases we cover involve kids.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I'm drawn to. I mean, every murder is sad, but there's just kids are vulnerable, so it adds such a tragedy to it.
Yeah, people are crazy. Speaking of that, we didn't get to see it, but there was people in the courtroom for the Letitia Stalk status hearing the other day.
The first of many hot messes in that
So
courtroom.
what'd she do? She cussed at the judge or something?
There was... Okay, so I was reading tweets and I was retweeting for our followers. It had something to do with discovery, and she said something was BS to the judge. And
who does that?
Letitia.
I mean, come on.
People who represent themselves.
Come on now.
I mean, like you say, at least Ted Bundy was smart.
Yeah.
I mean, he was educated. But this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah. So her next court date is not till May. So they bumped it back so she could have time to go through everything. And I know she was complaining about not having access to the computers in the library, but only so many hours. And
that's why you have attorneys represent you when you're locked up for killing a child.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we know the next one up, I think, is the De Belvallo on the 22nd of March. It's a motion to dismiss.
Yeah.
So
I'm just curious to hear their argument, but it's going to be the same song and dance. It's
just such a waste of time.
It's going to be a whole day or two of, all this, and then it's going to be a whole day of the judge looking bored, like, why are we here?
Yeah, like his whole, it's shocking to me. I know he's saying he's innocent. He didn't do anything, blah, 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 whatever. Dude, you text your wife about burying a raccoon in your backyard the day Alex is in your yard burying the kids.
And you're possibly making excuses for why there's a gunshot.
Yeah,
and
like,
why
come
there's
on.
Burnt stuff in your bonfire.
Yeah, I wish the judge could just look at him. I don't know if you remember the Gong Show, and like gong him and say, no go. No motion to dismiss. Move on, buddy.
No dismiss for you.
Yeah. No soup for you. Yeah. So, but anyways, that's the next one coming up.
Yeah. So. Well, so we'll cover that. We'll live tweet it. That one is televised or streamed. And then, let's see, pre-trial still on for June the 2nd. And then July 7th through 12th.
Yep.
So
if they come on charges,
I don't think that'll. I really don't.
Come on, Rob, drop them.
Yes,
drop them charges.
Drop it like it's hot, Rob.
Social media is going to blow up.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna go live when they drop charges. So y'all get prepared.
You have a theory though.
I do.
So, well, I'm going to be out of town next week.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
totally. So Fruit Loop's not going to be here for a few days. She's got a friend coming in town. They're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of not this week, but the next week, something big will happen in one of our cases. And then I'm just going to be sitting here in front of a microphone that's turned off because my best friend is not sitting across from me on her microphone.
So if it happens, guys, you can thank me because I left and went out of town.
Well, we'll have to, I'll come find you.
We'll do a Zoom. We can do a Zoom.
There we go.
A Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom in.
So, and then we'll be, I think we're going to the beach house. Are you coming?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And we're going to pull off actually on our way there and go to Gannon's resting place. It's not very far at all from the main road we take. So there goes your little monitor.
Yep.
Did you guys hear the beep beep?
It was a beep beep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I think that was everything for today.
Yeah.
So we're going to see you guys on Wednesday. If anything happens, we'll hop on for a sweet tea session. And, but yeah, so I think we're gonna finish these episodes here on the next one we do. Just kind of taking a little break from the Wagners because you can get so lost in the details in that case.
Yeah.
And so we were just so impressed with this podcast that we wanted to hop on and give our thoughts on it. And so there you go.
So don't forget, if you hadn't signed the petition for Victoria's law.
Yes.
It's on our social media.
It's still pinned to the top, so that should be the first post you see on both. Reminder, the family does not have a GoFundMe. There are some fakes going out there. And so we don't want our generous listeners to get scammed.
Yep.
And it just happens.
So there's nothing new in that case. So
nope, nothing going on. So we'll keep an eye on everything and hope you guys have a good Monday.
Yep. Good Monday.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I mean, I'm just being hopeful. You know, I know it's probably going to stink for everybody, but
I can remember in school I hated Mondays.
Oh, it's the worst. I hate Mondays. My kids they're harder to get up. It's Mondays are Monday.
Yep. But we've had some nice weather.
Yeah.
We had campfire. We had a campfire yesterday evening. It was pretty cool.
Okay, but it was warm yesterday.
It was.
Like your little
But it was windy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't go outside much
It
yesterday.
was kind of chilly. Like I had my sweatshirt on. So
well, I think we're starting to get into spring mode here. It's 60s and 70s from here on out. So that's fine by me.
yeah, but then 2 days from now it'll be 32 degrees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's our weather's just, should I warm up? Should I just remind them that it's still winter? I'm just glad we gain an extra hour of daylight next week.
I always said that the weatherman is like the easiest, coolest job because you can be dead wrong and it's okay. Like,
oh, it's not okay. Have you read
something? Oh, I know. Our guy here gets
lit up.
He does, and it's horrible. He's awesome.
Yeah, but you can't predict snow in upstate South Carolina. We're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Oh, it's a horrible area.
And so it's a toss up. So they could call for 6 inches and then you get rain. And then they call for when it snowed a few weeks ago, they weren't calling for maybe a dusting. And then I'm on the other side of town with 3 inches on the road. Thank goodness I had a Jeep. Yeah. So here it's just sort of a flip of the coin, but we like summer better. And it'll be warm here till October, sometimes November.
Yep.
Gotta love the climate, but we'll hush for now.
Yep. We'll leave you be.
People are like, well, y'all shut up.
I know. Hush about the weatherman. Yep. All right. Good night.
See you guys.